We have a wonderful panel today, Demystifying Go-to-Market Strategy. And as I invite the panelists to come up here, I'm going to introduce Stefan Cisco, who CEO, co-founder, serial entrepreneur. His current company is, and his company forever, is going to be Betterly AI, powered by street thinking. He's also an entrepreneur in residence at Techtown Detroit, Goldman Sachs 10,000 Business. He's a board member of New Enterprise Forum, past president, and he worked at Domino's a long time ago. So he's going to be the moderator for today, and as the panelists come up here, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, David. So I've been coaching for the New Enterprise Forum for, I think, like 9 years. And so when it comes to pitches, when it comes to go-to-market, I can't say I've heard it all. That's more Gary Hessenauer, Bill McPherson. But I've seen a lot. You know, I've seen the go-to-market strategy of, we're really going all in on social media. We're just going to be everywhere. We're going to just bombard everybody. Our target market won't be able to ignore us. Thank you very much. Notice how that makes no difference. If they told you this is for the online part. If you're online, it makes a huge difference. So, we've heard we really think that our product's very, it's so revolutionary. It'll change the game. So we expect to go viral. I mean, there's no way. We're groundbreaking. We know Starbucks never had to spend money on marketing, and they grew and grew, and we're thinking we'll be like that. And then, of course, you have, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to hire a national sales force. We're going to exhibit at the 50-plus conventions, trade shows, exhibitions that are in our industry all around the world. We're going to do tons of course, trade publication advertising. We're going to do PR. We're going to cover all the bases. Oh, and we're going to do a really cool influencer campaign. Now, okay, these are a little more the extreme ones, but in reality, I mean, we all know go-to-market is important, both in strategy and in execution. But there's one question that founders seem to have over and over and over again. It's a simple question. It's, so what the hell is go-to-market strategy? Fair enough. Okay, I get it. I get what it is, but what is it, right? How do I do it? How do I go about pulling it off? So today, we have got a powerhouse panel. I mean, the experience, the knowledge, the charisma, all that. I'm surprised the lights didn't just dim a little bit when they got up here together. They're spectacular. They're spectacular. We're going to have a lot of fun today answering that question. And we'll be answering it from a couple perspectives. I'll tell you more about that in a second. So I'm going to put on my glasses so I can read stuff and not forget what all these wonderful people do. First of all, Allison Cavetti is co-founder and chief marketing officer at Rivetwork, a Detroit-based software company scaling better workforce management solutions for construction contractors. As an early stage operator, she paved foundations for product design, sales, customer success, and marketing. Prior to Rivet, she founded, I think this is really cool, an internal marketing agency inside an automotive supplier to increase creative output and storytelling. And before doing marketing, she held roles in journalism where she learned to pivot early, bringing core storytelling skills along the way. She's passionate about building underdog brands with a mission for elevating people. Allison, welcome. Next, we have Jen Baird, who has over 2 decades of experience founding and leading high-potential startups. As a venture and angel-backed CEO, she's raised over $75 million. But there's something I think is cooler. Yeah, this is the fun fact. Jen sort of got her entrepreneurial start right here at NEF. Well, okay, not right here, but, at NEF. Apparently for Accuray cytometers, Jen learned the art of pitching from NEF, and being the wonderful student she is, she wound up in 2011 being Entrepreneur of the Year from NEF. So, yeah. So it's kind of cool, but she's been awfully busy in the intervening years. I actually watched her do the math yesterday as she added up that she's been actively involved in nine startups so far. She's been twice included in Crane's 100 Most Influential Women in Michigan, top 10 artificial intelligence solutions provider. She contributes to the entrepreneurial ecosystem as an executive board member, strategic advisor, CEO coach, blogger, mentor, consultant, and speaker. Jen, welcome. And last, alphabetically, you're not used to that. Your last name starts with a K. You're not used to being last alphabetically. So Lindsay Kilbride, principal at Detroit Venture Partners. She's a native Michigander and graduated from the University of Michigan in industrial and operations engineering with a minor in mathematics. Dude, you're killing me. Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome. She began consulting for Bain & Company. And then, here's a neat one. And then Mary Kay, she earned the famed pink Cadillac. The entrepreneurial beginnings, right? In 2010, she became an early employee at Trunk Club, leading sales and market expansion over 8 years and acquisition by Nordstrom. She's since consulted for several PE and VC-backed companies looking to disrupt traditional B2C and B2B2C retail, most notably Matilda Jane and 11 Honoré. Yeah, I got that right. She's also co-founder of Shopflix, a shoppable video network of founder and brand stories hosted by influencers and industry experts. Tonight, Lindsay's going to provide the VC perspective on go-to-market strategy. But the cool thing is that we have a VC and 3 entrepreneurs, 3 founders. So like I told you, we've got a lot of great perspectives here. So we're going to try to nail this from all angles. And I'm going to start with Lindsay. I want to start by kind of defining the term go-to-market. And what do investors want to see in a go-to-market strategy? I mean, we're talking how detailed, how broad, give us a definition so we can have something to start from.
Thank you. Excited to be here and excited to chat all the things go-to-market. So I think from a venture perspective, and honestly, so I've been at Detroit Venture Partners. We're the VC arm of Dan Gilbert's family office, for those of you who don't know. And we invest primarily in early stage companies. I'm at the very earliest stages, often in Detroit. And I've been there for 2 years, and honestly, there's so much that I know now that I wish I knew when I was on the other side of the table pitching and asking for money, because looking at it through this lens, I'll give you guys some inside baseball here. But a go-to-market strategy in my mind is proving that not only you have a really cool product or service, but it's one that meets a need and that people want to pay for, right? And then I think a third thing here would be pay for at scale. And so when people are defining their go-to-market strategy, I loved some of the things you said. It's like, we're going to do this and that and this and that, and then in 5 years it'll be $1 billion acquisition. And like, there's no way, like that's it almost feels like you don't know how to connect the dots, or you're not thinking about it strategically enough. And then I think a VC kind of shrinks back and says, well, my $500,000 or my $1 million is certainly not going to get you there. Like, we need to understand your rationale and your thinking about how you're going to do this in chunks. And so maybe, and I'm not sure if it was in the presentation earlier, but you'll see these concentric circles here of it's like TAM, SAM, SUM, and the TAM being the total addressable market, right? So the big, hairy, scary, how massive could this be? I'm not even sure what the other, I think it's serviceable addressable market and serviceable obtainable market, but it's sort of as it gets smaller, what's the most massive version of this if everything goes right? What's kind of the middle case, and how am I going to prove it out? And it's not to say that your go-to-market strategy is just a proof of concept, that you show that 1 or 2 or 3 people think this makes a lot of sense, but how are you going to go about showing that you have something that is worth investing in and betting on? So I'm gonna call Jonathan out here. I see we plugged the Pitch Pit competition again. He won last time around, and I was lucky enough to be there. And his company, Spelling Safari, if I were thinking about his go-to-market strategy as like a real-world, tangible example, he's building an educational tool to help children with spelling, reading is like the super Cliff's Notes on that. Like the TAM is like how many dollars are spent in the U.S. every year on educational software, right? Quadrillions. Maybe like the slightly smaller circle is, okay, how much is being sold, not necessarily direct to consumer, but to teachers, to educational systems, and to ancillary educational resources, because that's where he's excited to focus. But his go-to-market is going to be like selling into schools. So why? Here's the reasons why. How is he going to do it? And so we had a long conversation about this after his pitch, and talking about how his go-to-market is he's going to start with teachers. They have an existing budget. They actually have, and he has a huge network of teachers, being an educator himself. And what he's going to prove is that this is making a difference in the lives of those teachers and those students. And then here's how he's going to scale it to the next level and the next level. And I think at every piece of this, you can see how if this works, and we zhuzh a little, then that could work, and that could work as you raise subsequent rounds of capital and continue to grow your business. So I guess don't think like teeny tiny small, but like if you try to boil the ocean out of the gates, you're gonna lose investors.
Thank you. Absolutely. Anything to add, or so I'll just move on to the next question. Or I'm sorry, Allison.
I mean, that covered a lot. It was awesome. Thank you. And DVP is one of our investors too.
Portfolio
so it's kind of
right
cool.
Here.
I think I just want to add to, I have a little more unique perspective too, in that I'm not the CEO. So I want to share that too. So I'm not the fundraiser at Rivet, but I've been the right hand since the beginning. So I'm not in the pitch. So I just want to share that, not writing the pitch, collaborating on the pitch, because I think it's important to note. Some things we've learned though, because we're fresh. We're post-seed in December of 2022. So we're fresh out of 2 rounds since 2020. And so this is really fresh learning for us. And I think some interesting tips that have been useful for us is that being really intentional that go-to-market matters to you, not just building a great product. So we've said successfully, we're not only building a great product, but we're building a great company. And so we're really serious about the go-to-market. And just that alone, too, is as important as defining what the strategy is. Because I think that's something that I observe investors are listening for. Do you understand that you have a business to build, not just a really cool product? And so I think that's been something that has been part of the success for us. And then I think one facet of the go-to-market that has been really appealing is understanding that even though you're the early operators in the business, you're not going to do it by yourself. So a big part of the go-to-market pitch is I'm going to hire, and I'm going to bring advisors or coaches or people with me. That's like I think the number one most recent important tip or important experience we've had is demonstrate this is important and you're going to hire related to it.
To add on to that, I would suggest that it changes over the life of the company. So at the earliest stage, when you're developing a product, part of your go-to-market is, do you understand who your customer is? Do you understand what their unmet need is? Do you understand what that value proposition is that actually matters? And one of the big gaps that oftentimes entrepreneurs have is they can't express how they know their customer base. So one of the very first things that the earliest stage startups need to prove is, I actually know who my customer is. I actually know who my buyer is. I actually know what they care about. If you can do that credibly, and you can start to get a pilot, or you can start to get some earliest sales or those kinds of things, then you're kind of incrementally going along. This is the results of our beta testing. This is the results of our first customers. This is what we've been learning. That's the next stage. Then you reach a point where now you're talking about scaling. How am I building out a sales force? How am I going to go global? So at Accuray, I had to have a strategy of how we're going to start in the US, then we're going to go to Europe, then we're going to the rest of the world. Accuray did go global. But we started in the very first stage of discussions was about these are who our customers are. This is what they care about. Here's a bazillion notes summarized in the deck, but available for due diligence. And it was proving that we knew what our customers and value proposition were. And of course, we always had to be able to calculate and prove that we had some clue because we had a new product. We had to come up with some rationale for getting to those big numbers and actually have a calculation and have some referenceable elements to it. But later, it became much more about how many people are you going to have on your sales force? What are their skill sets going to be? What's that mix going to look like? What's the brand? What's the marketing? How are you going to raise awareness? All those kinds of things. I'm working with on a company called CultureWell right now with Sarah Beatty, and I'm sure some of you have heard Sarah tell that story, but what's really interesting about that is that Sarah's using for raising awareness, going to infection prevention conferences where all the people that buy her product actually congregate. But there's only one or two of those conferences a year, so that actually makes sense. You were making a little bit of a story around how many conferences can you go to? You better know how much conferences actually cost, because trust me, they're really expensive. And if you say, I'm going to a bazillion conferences, the investors know that they cost a lot of money, they cost a lot of time, that your yield isn't that great, and you will look silly if you say, this is our strategy, we're going to go there, especially at the earliest stage. So there's so many different dimensions to this, but I think of go-to-market strategy as being the whole commercial side of things. Now, there can be some debate about, is that value proposition, is that business model, is that go-to-market strategy? I don't know that it really matters. It's distinct from how are we going to build the product and what is our intellectual property protection and how much money do we need. They're connected, but they're not the same thing. And so investors are used to seeing, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but used to seeing great in people who have invented something really cool. And they put a lot of focus on how are you going to actually sell that and translate that into a business? Do you actually understand how the numbers go together? If you can sell that credibly, then you have, the number of times I've heard somebody say, I'm looking for somebody to have adult supervision. Okay? What is adult supervision? It's somebody who knows the business and how the numbers go together and will keep the engineers in check. Okay, what is it that the entrepreneur, who can be very technical, has to be able to demonstrate they actually know the business side of things? Because the working assumption of the investors is if you have a electrical engineering PhD, you haven't spent a lot of time building businesses and you don't necessarily know how all the accounting works. And you don't necessarily want to go out and talk to people, which is what marketing usually involves. And so you are working against these biases and perceptions and stereotypes. And you have to be able to explain the practical things. And your story will change. And the story of a Series B company will be different than a Series A company, than a seed company, than a Series D company. Because that's how companies develop.
Thank you. So Allison, can you hear without the mic for, yeah? So Allison, tell us a bit about your go-to-market strategy for Rivet work. And as I understand, your go-to-market strategy started with the name of the company.
Yeah, so Rivet, I think we mentioned at the beginning, B2B SaaS, first of all. Rivet we're building a workforce management platform for construction contractors. And a little bit of the origin story, 2020, we had been working in electrical, in lighting controls, Ryan, my CEO, and I, and there's a problem. Everything is paper in construction. And a long story short, hundreds of interviews later, that problem is everywhere. It's in the union halls, it's in the contractors. The digitalization of things is behind and continues to be behind. So that's an exciting opportunity. And so Rivet, I guess back to the name, I named Rivet. I'm super proud of that. And I think it's a big, important part of the story of our go-to-market strategy. A rivet, if you're familiar with a bridge, the truss system on a bridge, strong connectors on the truss, rivets. So rivets are strong connections. And what construction's missing is strong digital connections. So that storytelling, it's inspiring. It's inspiring if you're talking to a union hall, and it's inspiring if you're talking to a trade school. It's inspiring if you're talking to a contractor. They say, you mean you can connect us? Like we can, from the hall, dispatch crews to the job site, or apprentices from the school to the contractor. So the story of Rivet and the way that it resonates in the market is a really powerful part of remembering who we are, especially being brand new and earning credibility. We resonate with the customer base. I also want to mention Rosie is an important part of our story. I'm super proud of her too. Rosie is our digital assistant. So today she's a chatbot, and the customer success team will answer our customers in the platform. But Rosie long term is, AI. She's super helpful. She's a digital assistant. What else? From just the brand, or how are we going to market? So in B2B SaaS, we're taking a storm the beach approach. The beach is electrical. The electrical market, we have credibility, we have relationships there, we understand the market. We are building clusters of communities of contractors, starting just naturally in the Midwest, where we're from, but winning the beach and then expanding, so land and expand. Naturally, electrical contractors work with mechanical, electrical, plumbing, so we expand into the trades. That's where we're at right now, really exciting. Mechanical and plumbing are just naturally attracted to the product that's configured for electrical, and that happens to be a good niche. So there is another workforce management product in the market. It's for general contractors. It's a very different application that gives Rivet something unique. And so I'll stop there.
Thank you. So, I mean,
I could talk about Rivet all day.
yeah, well, no, that's great. And part of it is about customers. I mean, talk about the deep knowledge of customers. You can tell there's a lot of thought, which is, but a lot of talking to customers, a lot of figuring it out and then thinking about it. So going out and talking to customers. But that's a great story. There's a lot put in there of how you're going to land, how you're going to expand, and it's all interconnected. So thank you for that. Now,
I want to add a tip.
oh yes.
I've seen this, I've done it myself. When you are talking to investors, especially if you're as knowledgeable about customers as what you're talking about, it is easy for you as an entrepreneur to be immersed in your customer base, which is great, really good to know your customer that well. But you have to actually also be able to realize that the investor does not know your customer. They actually don't know what's important to that customer, and you've got to be able to figure out a way to allow the investor to feel smart and knowledgeable about your customer, feed them the information, and explain it to them in a way they can relate to. And I think one of the arts about go-to-market strategy is being able to take that customer base, which hopefully you know deeply. I mean, how many people in this room know everything there is to know about immunology and flow cytometry? Probably not very many. How many people in here know about how to run cleaning contractors in hospitals and infection prevention and the microbiology therein? How many people know about trying to figure out whether you've got a crashing patient and you're an intensivist? okay? I have built companies around all three of those things, and I can tell you that I have to, as the person doing the pitch, be able to help people understand and relate to that customer base. So there is something about the pitching part of telling your go-to-market where you've got to be able to help people understand and relate to that customer base and what's important to them. Because honestly, what's important to them should drive this. So I'll give an accurate example. That's that flow cytometer. We're talking about scientists. They're the ones that buy it. The scientist cares about, can it do my science? How do I know? Well, I'm going to take a test tube and I'm going to put it on your device, and I'm going to put it on the one I'm already using, and I'm going to be able to see that the data I get off the $150,000 device is the same as the data that I get off the $35,000 device. Why wouldn't I want the $35,000 device? That fits into my budget. Now, my point being, I have now told you there's a budget limit, that I'm going to do comparisons to the other thing. I'm going to talk about science. Did I tell you anything about immunology? Did I use any big words that everybody in this room couldn't understand? No, but I made it clear that this is very scientifically based, that I actually need scientists to sell to scientists. But I also need sales directors who know how to drive a sales process. And that tells you, why is my sales force looking the way it does? Those are the kinds of things that you have to bring out in your go-to-market strategy, and the ways that you need to translate what you're doing. And what you don't want to do is a whole bunch of buzzwords, because poor Lindsay, she sees buzzwords all day, every day, and she's not impressed, I don't think.
Sometimes I'm intimidated. If anything, I'll be super brief on this, but I'm an operator posing as an investor, which I feel like is the best type of investor to pitch to, because like I see both sides of it. But I said today on a call with somebody, I was like, I'm sorry if I sound stupid, but like I actually don't know the acronym you just used, and like that word is not in my vocabulary. Can you explain this like you would to your 17-year-old cousin at like Thanksgiving dinner? Because like I want to understand, but like you're giving me master's level courses right now, right, and I'm still in elementary school. And if you're pitching, especially like an early stage fund or a generalist, like you need to do that.
Right. So Lindsay, hang on to the microphone.
Yes.
So a question I hear a lot is, we're going to market with a product that is going to need considerable work, and it's going to grow. It's either an MVP or it's a little more than an MVP. How do I pitch? What do I talk about? Is it what we're doing now? Is it the future? Is it somewhere in between? You had mentioned something about like a car going down the road. So how do you balance your pitching, what you're about to do, and where you're going to wind up?
Yes. So the company that I co-founded, one of our early investors who was very friendly, so he would kind of give me the inside baseball, told me about how to think about this. An MVP, if you don't know that acronym, I didn't. Back in the day, it's minimum viable product. And what that is the car analogy. He's like, don't out of the gates try to pitch or build like a premium Range Rover, like Rivian, elect 150. He's like, get something that's just driving down the street. Like it might only have 3 tires and one's half flat, and like it has manual windows. But like what you need to do is just get something that can drive down the road, and you need to get people to test drive it. And I think that it's a really smart analogy, because I've seen founders in our portfolio, quite honestly, who believe in that sort of field of dreams, like if I build it, they will come, and spend a lot of money on engineers and like this perfect, beautiful, like works like but they haven't figured out who wants to buy it, or how to price it properly, or get enough traction. And then, often your first fundraise is, if it's a pre-seed, seed stage, it's sort of reputational. You're betting on the founder at that point. Like, do I think they have enough expertise? Do I think they have like a decent business plan? Is the valuation palatable? Like, all right, we'll give them a little cash. And often a second fundraise can be very much reputationally based. It's like, okay, they built like a little something, they have some pilots, we'll give them a little bit more money. But if you burn through that money and that money again, and you've got a beautiful car that nobody is paying for, like you're going to have to send it to the junkyard. So but I think it's okay to paint the picture of like one day we believe this can be, but you're never going to raise enough capital to get there if you can't get that clunker driving down the road first.
Excellent, excellent. By the way, if anybody has any questions, we'd be glad to hear them. So just kind of raise your hand and wave it until somebody calls my name, because I didn't notice you right away. Allison, partnerships. You mentioned partnerships as being an integral part of your go-to-market.
Yeah, I think partnerships are everything. So in construction, specifically just drawing, again, from my experience, it's a relationship-based industry. So, I mean, even the talk at the beginning about events and some of the high-cost marketing things, those still matter in an industry like construction. So it's just an interesting thing to have to explain to investors, too, that the CAC is a little bit higher based on the way people get together in construction. They're not online. They're not even LinkedIn. They're not really on LinkedIn yet. They're in the field. So partnerships are everything. And then back to, how does that play into the go-to-market strategy? For us, it was a channel partner in electrical. So explaining that at the early stage, when we didn't have a lot of credibility, we're coming into the market, our help was a channel partner, someone that adding a digital tool to their portfolio rounded it out. So they made wire nuts. We made software for electrical contractors. It gave them access, symbiotic access to other parts of the organization that they didn't have before. That partner became an investor. That partner became a long-term partner for us and opens the door. So opens the door, hey, you should check them out, so that we could earn those first beta partners, then pilot, customers along the way. And that continues to be, as we get a little bit later stage, really important industry partners. So now there are industry partners that have access to the memberships of all of the contractors in construction. Being a part of those groups, going where they go, going to their shows, for example, or going to the hosting speaking things for their membership. Partnerships have been everything for that grassroots, organic virality for us before we, started to scale marketing.
Oh my God, I'm stealing this back for a second. Sorry, and then I'll give it to you. I was vibing over here when you were saying all that. I'm about to mention Spelling Safari again. You should really put me on payroll for how much I'm hyping you tonight. But just more like these real world examples, in talking through, again, an educational software, when you said things like building credibility and like organic growth and like partnerships, when we were talking about, where do you start? It's like, okay, well, I start with the teachers, because if the teachers love it, then they're like a rallying cry for like the schools, and then the schools for like the educational systems. And then if parents are seeing that their kids are getting better, through like the tools and systems being used, in their classrooms, then you can develop a D2C product. And, I think it makes sense. Is it going to work perfectly? Don't know. You know what I mean? How much capital is it going to take? How are you going to price it? Not totally sure. But the way you're going to market, to me, I can tie those threads together. And, similar to what you said, I'm not going to read it back perfectly, so I won't even try. But we're starting here because this is where our network is in the Midwest with these types of manufacturers, but then they can build hype for us organically, and it's like the snowball that starts rolling down a hill. And that, to me, is like a really well-articulated go-to-market, when even before you might have an MVP in place.
Love it.
The best word you use, both of you used it, which is credibility. And credibility and how you build credibility depends on your market. So I live, generally speaking, in the world of life science tools, healthcare, those kinds of things. When you're selling to a medical audience, you have to have data. What kind of data? Well, at Fifth Eye, we have a bunch of publications that are peer-reviewed that demonstrate that our product actually does what it says it's going to do. We also have FDA clearance 3 times over, which says that the FDA has reviewed and proven that our system does what it's supposed to do. So how do you build that credibility? Who are the people who can help bring you that credibility? pilot customers or early customers who are referenceable or who will tell their friends are a huge credibility boost to their communities. Many times these communities are really, really tiny or tight-knit. And granted, I'm really focused on B2B kinds of things, and there's just not the huge volume that you have in a consumer product. But what I've found is that in a B2B situation, oftentimes your customers all know each other. You know how many orthopedic surgeons there are in the country? Not nearly as many as you think. Do you know how many of those orthopedic surgeons know the other orthopedic surgeons? And when they get excited, they're going to tell their friends about it. Those are the kinds of things that are viral, and you have to understand what is going to be credible to the particular customers, and you need to be able to demonstrate that to the investor that you actually understand your customer. Like the generic answer that I encourage you to go beyond this. I'm going to do a social media campaign. I'm going to sell things. Like that is nothing specific to your customer about. Okay, if you're going to do a social media campaign, where? Focusing on who? And oh, by the way, are your people on LinkedIn? Are they on Instagram? Are they on X? I think that's what they call it now. But the point is you have to know that. And then you have to figure out, is actually that how your customers buy your product? And it is very specific to the customers. And I want to touch on, I'm going to slightly segue here, I want to touch on pricing. You will get asked about pricing because part of the thing that the investors are trying to understand is it credible that anybody would pay anything? And by the way, if they're going to buy it at $1 a piece, do you know how many you have to sell at $1 a piece to make a lot of money? If they'll pay $10,000 a piece, that's better. If they pay $50,000 a piece, that's better. Oh, if we expect a customer to pay $200,000 a piece, that's better. Oh, you've got to get $1 million contract. Do you know how hard it is to get $1 million contract? There is definitely a sweet spot, and you're going to have to convince an investor that actually there's budget, that it fits what you're trying to do, that the value is a multiple of whatever it is you're trying to charge. And there's going to have to be some logic into this. And I will tell you from experience that whatever you say, they will argue the other side. So if you say, I'm going to do a direct sales force, and this is how I'm going to do it, blah, 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 the question will become, who are your partners? And if you say, I'm going to do a distribution channel strategy with a bunch of partners, and I'm going to sell indirect, it'll be like, how come you aren't going to do a direct? So just be prepared, and don't be upset about the fact that whatever you say, they're going to test what you say by asking about the alternatives to that. And so hopefully you've actually thought about and can rationalize and explain why. And I see somebody waving. Do you have a question?
Oh, I'm connecting with whatever all three of you.
You look like you were waving. You had a question.
I have a ton of questions, but I'll let you speak. I do want to ask some questions.
Wants to ask a question?
Ask your question.
Watch this.
Oh, I think one of the first questions that I have is we talked about partnerships. You used the term channel partner. Yeah. Now that's a very intriguing term. It can mean many different things. So are you talking about sales channel partners? Are you talking about service channel partners? Are you talking about technology channel partners? I mean, where do you focus in go-to-market strategy when you do understand your customer? Any one of those could really help you succeed, and if you don't have it properly, then it would sink you. So where do you focus?
Yeah, it's a great question. It was something I was thinking about with the terms credibility and partnerships is I wanted to talk about training and education and that kind of thing. So great question.
This one's really fresh for me. We're thinking a lot about partnerships right now, but the partnership I mentioned, the story behind that is, and I think, so it's a sales channel partnership with revenue sharing. and it gave us a nationwide sales force. So I think the most important thing it gave us was credibility in the market, a well-established, well-known, highly qualified company was bringing us with them. So that's the number one thing, but the partnership structure looked like that. There's so many ways to think about partnerships, and one that I'm a big fan of that's the lowest risk is co-marketing with neighbors. So there are neighbors to your product that aren't competitive. For me, they're also technology providers, but maybe they're not in the workforce management space. But we can do things together that aren't contractual. They are, let's bring people together. Let's talk about our shared customer base, but on completely different things. So I like co-marketing a lot because co-marketing is the lowest risk. There's no contract to a partnership like that, other than you're expanding each other's awareness, which is a great, low-cost hack. Then there's revenue sharing, and then there's cross-selling. There's M&A. Partnership eventually could look like that. So we've got a chart where we're looking at partners across those 4 things together as a team as we have those discussions. But the one that always feels just safe to do is co-marketing.
Thinking about some of the other kinds of partnerships. So at Fifth Eye, one of our first partners was somebody who we could build an interface to, who already had interfaces with a whole bunch of the inputs that we needed. So by building one interface, we actually could claim to the marketplace that we had a whole bunch of interfaces. Now, of course, we said, let's co-market, because why not? But the reality was the point of that first partnership was actually to allow us to claim compatibility with a whole bunch of existing technologies that our customers would have in-house. On the other side of things, I do want to comment that sometimes particularly technical teams will think, oh, we'll just go hire somebody to sell our product. When you do that, you are hiring somebody, let me be clear. I don't mean hire somebody to be on your team. I mean, we're going to hire a partner to sell our product. If that partner already has a sales force, that sales force is already out there selling stuff. Okay? And that means that you have to compete for mind share not only with the customer, but also with the sales force. And so it's not nearly as simple as it seems like it might be on the surface. And you have to equip and compete and make sure that whoever you're partnering with is going to incent their sales force to actually sell your thing. I have found that with innovative products where people don't really understand what this product is and what problem it solves. By the way, most high potential startups are bringing something new and innovative to the marketplace that the marketplace doesn't really understand yet. Some of us may remember the days before smartphones. Sorry, I'm dating myself, but in the days before smartphones, nobody had any idea what a smartphone was. If you'd gone up and said, do you think you want to carry a computer around in your pocket? The person would go, a computer would never fit in my pocket. It's the size of a microwave. That doesn't even make any sense. And I find that oftentimes that's what you're dealing with when you're bringing an innovative product to the market. And so you're going to have some evangelizing salespeople who really know your product, really know your customer, that are going to be able to do a lot of education in that earliest first few stages. And hopefully over time, then those first customers can start educating other customers and explaining it. But in the earliest stages, you're going to have some people that are experts. And if you're going to try and use somebody to sell for you, you're going to have to find those people. And oh, by the way, they're not going to be people that you control. And so in many ways, it's actually harder than it is having a few salespeople that you control who are on mission to sell whatever you're trying to sell.
Can I add to that?
You may.
I really love that, because it's definitely, to clarify too, a partnership isn't for, I would not recommend they be your full sales arm. I recommend they open the door for you. It's a warm lead, it's a door opener. It's, hey, you can check this out. But I think founder sales, evangelists, whichever you call it, is critical. And spending too much time on a partner, enabling them with training on the product is not the focus area. It's, getting them to open the door for you to have that conversation yourself.
One thing, 2 words you said that I would just reiterate quickly, founder sales. A founder should be selling the product and getting some proof of concept and proof points before they hire somebody to do it. If you are the expert and you can't sell it, then you're not going to be able to fundraise, and you're not going to be able to get clients, and you're not going to be able to teach other people how to sell it. And if you're a highly technical or highly academic person who struggles with that, find a co-founder.
Can I add to that? This is so important. And this is very frustrating to me sometimes, because there are not the early stage funders. Early stage funders know that the rule of thumb is the first $1 million in sales is probably sold by the founder and startup CEO. I mean, if you tell me, I actually was talking to a first-time founder about earlier at the end of the year, and his goal was, I got to hire a salesperson because I can't close any sales. And here was the scariest, terrible thing. He said, I posted something on, LinkedIn or something. And I'm like, oh, well, send me what you posted. Or Indeed. And he's posted that he was looking for a salesperson, that the salesperson who was right for this job would know they were the right person. That was the requirement. Okay, so this person has not raised a lot of money yet, because, by the way, selling to investors is selling, okay? Let's be clear. You're selling the company as opposed to the product, but the idea that first sales is you selling to your customers. Somebody on the founding team, probably the best salesperson, which is probably the leader on the team, because fundraising is a huge part of that startup CEO's job, and that is selling, is what's going to happen. And most early stage investors know that. I have run into investors later stage who are like, you've got to build a gigantic sales force, when we have no sales yet at all. And it's like, no, you really don't. And you really do want to see those initial sales, that initial traction coming to bear. And hiring a sales force too soon, before you actually have figured out what your selling points are, how you're going to sell, which is all what you need to articulate in your go-to-market strategy, isn't going to work very well. And if they think that you need to just hire a gigantic sales force, they may just not be enough of an operator, frankly, to be doing investing, in my opinion.
Excellent. So, thank you. Lindsay, what mistakes do you see when people come pitch their go-to-market? What's kind of that thing that you wish people would do, not do, change, think about? What kind of really bugs you? What makes you think, wow, I love this company, I think I'm going to invest, never mind?
Never happens.
How do I articulate this? I've never seen a pitch where a founder is thinking too small, if that makes sense, at the early stages. I've seen a lot of pitches where the founder is 10 steps ahead of themselves, but can't clearly articulate the plan to get there. And so again, I talk about the little circle, the bigger circle, the bigger circle. Here's why I'm starting here. Here are the tactical steps I'm going to take. Here's why I'm the right person, given my expertise and my network, to do so. Or if I have the great idea, but I don't have the network, I've found a co-founder who does. Being able to articulate that, I'm not asking for like a day-by-day plan or some like Gantt chart, you know what I mean? But like, I think that when people just jump to like, this is the next billion-dollar idea, and my competitors are Nike and Lululemon, and it's like, I've already started checking email quietly, like during this Zoom call. So I say that more for comedic effect, but no, I just think, again, it's the clarity around like, why me? Why in this way? Why are we going to take these steps? And it shows that nobody has the right answer, like right out of the gates. Like somebody joked with me once, they're like, the only thing that's consistent about a pro forma model is they're all wrong. Like at the early stages. Like maybe you're directionally correct, but like it's definitely going to be wrong. And so nobody expects you to be like completely correct, but they expect you to be thoughtful and rational and a good steward of their capital. And so that would be the biggest mistake I see, is just like a little too pie in the sky, not enough like tactical plan to get there. And I just don't trust you to make smart decisions and to be a good steward of my capital.
Yeah, everybody talks about go-to-market strategy. Tactics are important. I'm going to do these grand things. Well, when you pick up the phone, who are you going to call? When you write, what are your first steps? So I think that's great. We had a question?
Yeah, I'm going to pull on that thread. Because I've spoken to, if you looked at my, if you remember my market slide, I only had a TAM and a SAM. I purposely didn't have a SOM because I used to pitch a SOM, and it was a $5 million SOM. It was our beachhead market. And I had an investor look at that, and I explained how, that just represents our immediate, our first steps, just like you described. And he said, oh, your SOM's too small. That doesn't make any sense. You need to be thinking bigger. So my solution was I took it completely out of my deck.
Thank you.
Again, for comedic effect, I've got like 4 little kids, and so like I have one of those like travel mugs. One of my girlfriends got me that says like, I'm not a regular mom, I'm a cool mom. I feel like maybe I'm not a regular investor, like I'm a cool investor in the sense that like I don't really care about like I had to look up before this presentation what SAM and SOM even stood for. Like I know philosophically, it means like biggest possible version, like I can wrap my arms around and like, but this could really happen and like 10x my investment. So I don't know, like part of me wants to tell you, like if somebody's getting that caught up on like the minutia in your deck, like maybe not the right investor for you. And again, like glad I don't know who you spoke to because I don't want to, talk disparagingly about anyone. But at the end of the day, like if someone were to say that to me, if I was a founder out pitching, like that's way too small, and be like, maybe I would just say, maybe I haven't properly articulated myself. This is what I'm going to work on over the next year in order to prove that we've got something viable in this lane, so that I can build channel partnerships and that I can begin to like leverage like the network of this initial customer base, and that I can like really dial in on my pricing, because I don't want to be giving it away for free. I don't want to be discounting my way to no level of profitability. Like I want to figure out how I can optimize my margins. But like this is like my first 12 to 18 months. And so I would just turn it on its head if somebody doesn't seem to be quite understanding. I don't think it's to your detriment that that's not in your deck. So I wouldn't say that at all. I think you articulated very clearly your crawl, walk, run through your presentation. And maybe that's what that is, my crawl, walk, run.
I agree. I think you did a great thing. Just take it out. But you have the answer if somebody probes it, right? And so you said the word why over and over again. Remember, in your go-to-market strategy, sometimes why you're doing it, the thing that you can answer the question on why do I choose to do this, is actually what they're trying to get at. They're trying to understand how you think and do I believe you. I will also say that you will often run into investors that have kind of knee-jerk reactions or perceptions of what's right or what's wrong. Accuracy is easy. We were building instruments that used reagents. Everybody wanted us to have a razor blade model. If you don't know what a razor blade model is, you sell the razor cheap and you make your money on the blades. Same thing works with printer and printer ink. It's classic razor blade model. When you're doing a scientific instrument that uses reagents, you're supposed to make your money on the reagents. Except to have a library of reagents costs a freaking fortune, and you don't make any money. And oh, by the way, the people that are going to acquire us have the monster library. So actually being compatible with their monster library of reagents is what got us a premium 10x revenue sale. Okay? So this is frustrating as the dickens in the early stages of pitching this company, because I'm like, we're not going to have proprietary reagents. Heresy. That is heresy. But we knew why. And the smart investors that dug into our space could understand our why, and probably 50% of the investors couldn't understand the why, and they weren't the right investors for us. So frankly, if you run into somebody like that who is clearly kind of like missing the point, they just might not be your investor, and that's okay, because most of the ones that you talk to aren't going to be an investor. So, thinking about why makes a huge difference. Same problem we had with pricing. Our price was $35,000. Our competitor's price was 4 or 5 times that. Everybody's like, why wouldn't you raise your price and just go a little bit less? Why? Because then we would be incrementally better than our customer, and we wouldn't change the size of the market. I can't tell you how many arguments I had with investors who said, but you should be charging $100,000 versus their $120,000. Do you know why we got bought? We got bought because we created a whole new, by the market leader, a whole new segment to the marketplace at a whole nother price point that they couldn't compete in, because they couldn't build a product as cheaply as we could. And those are the kinds of things that a smart investor is going to be able to see, and they're a good fit for you. And the ones that think it's got to be this cookie cutter or that cookie cutter, or it's got to fit this standard model, may not understand your marketplace and just are probably, you're saving yourself from years of pain.
You're never going to convince somebody to give you money. I think you're only going to inspire somebody to give you money.
That's a nice way to
Oh, that's a great ending right there. That's a great ending. Yeah, we'll put that on a T-shirt. Fabulous. So here, that was great. Yeah, okay. That's probably expensive, Mike. And also what Jen has told us is you need to think about go-to-market at the very beginning, but you also need to be thinking about your exit at the same time, because the strategy goes on.
We're going to go upstairs for networking, and you guys can.
All right, you can ask questions.
One last question.
Yeah, you could do it one-to-one in a moment. But what I tell you, I mean, brilliant, great, fantastic. I know quite a bit about this stuff, and I learned a ton. Thank you. Hopefully you all did as well. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time, your effort, and for enlightening us all. So thank you very much.